Hello and thanks for joining the Tuesday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Ozubakum. Today on the program, President Buhari ignores Governor El-rufai, flies El-Zakzaky abroad for medical treatment. Federal government blames organized labor for delay in implementing new minimum wage. And later on the show, NFF Nigerians pay tribute to soccer hero Sam OKWARAJI 30 years after a Super Eagles doctor says his death made players unpatriotic. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju, Olayinka Oyebile, and Musbah Razak. So if you are ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us once again. The voice of reason eventually bowed to political or legal exigencies in the Ibrahim El-Zakzaky detention saga after a Kaduna State High Court granted El-Zakzaky, the leader of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria, IMN, permission to travel abroad for medical treatments. The federal government has obeyed the order. The government ignored a spirited attempt by Governor El-rufai-led administration in Kaduna State to stop the trip and has flown the Sheikh leader to India for medical treatments. The plane making the cleric, his wife, and some members and others left Nigeria at about 6:45 p.m. and other contingents arrived India at about 10 a.m. Nigerian time. Judy, immediately after that court judgment, we came here and we said it's a way to go, it's good and everything, but the next day we saw the steps that the Kaduna State government actually listed, the hurdle to be met, and sometimes the federal government made us to understand that it was a case of Kaduna State government, saying that the government of India was actually confirmed the appointments with this particular hospital, saying they must regulate the people that will come and see him, that he will not be granted asylum in that, he will not seek asylum and not be granted asylum in that particular country, and listed both. At the same time, we made it known here that time was a great essence in terms of his health and everything. Thank God the federal government has bowed to voice of reason, and El-Zakzaky has gone to India for medical treatment.
Yes, it was the best decision in the circumstances, or in the circumstance that we found ourselves. It would be irresponsible of the government to allow someone like El-Zakzaky to die in detention when all that would have been necessary would be to let him seek medical attention abroad. Many people have said, oh, why abroad? Well, we all know the state of our health services. So if the president does not even have faith in our own health services, why should we quarrel with anyone who wants to go abroad to look after himself? So this is the thing. When the Kaduna government listed a list of conditionalities as long as the third mainland bridge in Lagos, I just saw it as impotent grandstanding, because you are not the court of law. It is the court that in granting bail will set conditions.
And they've done that.
Conditions upon which the bail, upon which if you violate them, then the bail can be revoked. But you are not a court of law. Even if you assume in your wildest dreams that you look like one, you are not a court of law. And it's a clear message, because if El-rufai, or if El-Zakzaky should die in detention, God forbid, the problem won't be that of Kaduna alone. That is the point that El-rufai must realize. Today, the leader of the Boko Haram was killed in Borno State. Was killed in Borno State by some irresponsible policemen after soldiers duly handed him over to them. But today, many people have been killed outside of that area. Nigeria has no peace.
Yobe, Adamawa, Abuja.
Kaduna.
Kaduna, Kano.
Plateau. In one day, they killed about 200 people in Kano.
Kano. Sabongiri Market.
even journalists. Journalists are paid with their lives. An NTA reporter paid with his life in Maiduguri. A Chinese reporter paid with his life in Kano. So when you take some actions, you must always look at the bigger picture. This is no time for grandstanding. Someone that doctors, both doctors, private doctors, and government doctors looked at him and determined that his health status was there. And the judge looked at all of those reports, including the fact that the content of lead in his body as a result of pellets of bullets that the army fired into his body was intolerable.
And was seen with just one eye.
So after that decision, you now come up with IMF conditionalities. No sensible government will allow that to happen. So those conditions were thrown out of the window, and the president has done the right thing. You are not DSS. DSS announced to us that it was going to comply. You can't sit in Kaduna and overrule the DSS. You are not Bichi. Bichi, up till today, by God's grace, is the DG of the DSS. So if he took a decision, no governor, no matter how big he thinks he is, can overrule the DSS. Excellent. So we thank God that this decision has been taken. We will not make the same mistake that was made in 2009. 10 years after, more than 30,000 people have lost their lives. No, it will not happen.
Mika, we can see the road has been turbulent, tough, and it has claimed several casualties. And it took the Shiites consistent protests in Abuja, of followers of El-Zakzaky. Consistent protests, and we lost a Channels TV correspondent. We even lost a deputy commissioner of police. And for government to look at, man, this thing is getting out of proportion.
In fact, you see, just as you said in your introduction, we are very, very happy that the voice of reason has prevailed in this. And before we go to this point, we all know that the hawks and the doves, both in Aso Rock and in Kaduna, were joking for who will have the last say. But thank God, the president, very unprecedented, had to take that decision very fast. Because the situation we have on our hands is very dire, as we have been saying. You don't, because a group has broken the law recklessly, you don't apply the law on them also recklessly. The essence of power is to be mighty, to be kind with your power. You have to look at it very well. As the Yoruba will say, don't be an alagbara mamero, that you have the power and you don't use your power as you have it.
Without wisdom.
Without wisdom. So now, the government has looked at these issues, and if you know the group called the IMNN, if you know them very well, I've lived in Zaria before, I've passed through Zaria before, I know how violent they are. I know how uncontrollable they are. But in dealing with them, yes, you used both the carrot and stick approach. You don't use stick always, and if the government had not allowed reason to prevail, what we have on our hands will be greater than what we have done. And it is better now that they have allowed this man, at least tension will calm down now. There is nowhere, anywhere in the world or anywhere in the country that anybody will say they want to hold a protest, that they will not calm them down. What else do you want? They have allowed your leader to go and take care of himself. What else do you want? Not only him, with his wife. It is a good thing that the government has done that, and those voice of reason must continue to prevail on the situation we have in our hand. If at the end of this now, it comes back, and whatever judgment or whatever happens, and there's trouble again, people will know that they've given you the long rope. What else do you want? So it is a good thing that the government has done, and whoever influenced or prevailed on the president to take this decision must be commended. And the president himself has shown that he's a statesman. Because apart from that, you know, we know that the Sunnis and the Shiites are the issue between them. Of course, we know the Sunnis are more in Nigeria. And because of that, there have been so much talks about, okay, this is just a way to make the Shiites to decimate them, to cow them and all that. But we thank God that we have arrived at this point. Our prayer should be that the man gets well and he comes back and faces trial. Because the essence of trying somebody or arresting somebody is not to kill. It is to be able to bring him back alive, then let him tell us what is the problem. Because that's the problem we have always been facing. Okay. When you catch a criminal, you just kill him off and you don't allow things to go on. Okay,
Razak, he has been given bail several times before this time, and it has been in court and everything. Why did you think the federal government had to wait till his health deteriorated and the wife's health, you know, till this time, and it had to take demonstrations and protests and killings for, you know, to get the attention of federal government?
The day the new bail was given, I waited with my heart in my heart whether the federal government will allow him to go. But I think with the level of protest the Shiites have been putting up in Abuja, the federal government must have realized the problem on its hands. And when I read it immediately that the DSS said they will allow the man to go for his health screening, I was happy. I was happy because, like Jide has said, that was how we began with Boko Haram. Yusuf Mohammed, the guy was handed over alive and he was killed. It's something like that. Today, where are we now? So these people, their own case that we have on the ground already. We don't care who will go with us. So they don't care. So the more we continue to play the big men, they don't see themselves as big, but they know they can cause trouble for you. So when the federal government said the man should go for his medical trip, I was happy. Only to hear the Kaduna government saying, listing a lot of conditions, haba. But thank God, as you have said, reason has prevailed. The man is in India now. Nobody is even give Nigeria a positive image in the international community. Nobody will accuse us of flouting court orders. So I'm happy, and I think we should commend the federal government for not flouting the court order.
Okay, all right. The blame game trailing the yet to be implemented new minimum wage in Nigeria begins to make most citizens wonder if the whole arrangement was not political. The federal government has blamed the delay in the implementation of the 30,000 naira minimum wage on unrealistic demands and inconsequential adjustments by organized labor. The chairman of the National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission, Richard Egbule, explained that the demand of labor could not be accepted because it will raise the total wage bill too high. Babajide, when that minimum wage was signed to law and when the federal government accepted to pay this minimum wage before the election, a lot of Nigerians were saying that, okay, let's wait and see. Some welcomed it and some others were skeptical. People like me, somebody like me, I was skeptical because I know that the federal government, no doubt, might be able to pay the minimum wage. But I looked at states that have had to look at their finances in the past, how they've been struggling to pay 18,000 naira, not to talk of 30,000 naira. There are some states in Nigeria now that might go underneath if they start implementing that 30,000 naira. Now, let me ask you first, what is affecting the implementation of this minimum wage, even at a federal level?
No, you see, when the minimum wage is announced, you don't just start paying. You have to sit with labor, because everyone will benefit from increasing minimum wage, whether you are level 17 officer or level 100. You will all benefit. It's a kind of incremental benefit. So, and that is where the big negotiation begins. What is the percentage that should go to so cadre of workers? Yeah. So, Labour was complaining that government had not come up with tables, templates and all that will show exactly how it intends to implement the minimum wage. Now, they've got to that point. You have level 1 to 7. You have 7 to 14. You have level 15 to 17. What is the percentage increase that should go to the wages of people in the different cadres that I have talked about? Now, Labour is saying that because those junior workers, those who are benefiting from minimum wage, those who got minimum wage, got 66% increase from 18 to 30,000. Yeah. Therefore, there should be 66% increase across board. And government is saying you can't do that. If we do that, the wage bill will be too high, much higher than provided for in the budget. Because the government has come up with a budget and factored the idea of a new minimum wage into it. You know, a kind of projection that, okay, at least we'll be able to pay minimum wage even with this. But if you are saying that everyone should get 66% increase across board, that is what is difficult for them to implement, because the wage bill would then become too high. Let's look at the federal civil servants, for example. The wage bill, even about 2-3 years ago, was in the region of 150 billion a month. With the minimum wage, especially if we go by what Labour wants now, there is no way this thing won't go to in the region of 300 billion a month. Yeah. So because if we implement what they want, what Labour wants, a level 17 officer will get between level 15 to 17 will get around 100,000 naira increase on their salary. So because you gave 12,000 naira extra to someone, you move from 18 to 30. You know, does it mean that someone else should now get as much as 100,000? This is the logical thing, and I don't think that government has done bad. Yes, these are early days in the negotiation, but Labour has to be realistic. You have to look at each cadre and decide on what each cadre should get. Some will get about 10%. Some will get between like 5%. People are already earning fat. The minimum wage was not meant for them. The fact that they've now increased minimum wage should not then mean that they will be the ones to benefit the most. You can't go and add 100,000 to the salary of a level 17 officer. It's just not realistic.
It's defeated.
The whole essence is defeated. Even the gap between the haves and the have-nots that we always talk about will become wider. The gap between the person on level 17 and level 1 will be extremely wide. So I think that Labour has to be more realistic at this point in time. If government wants to implement minimum wage and it has set out table for you that this is what we want to do, for level 7 to 14, we are prepared to pay 9.5. Then let us see how that works. But to insist that there should be 66% increment across board for every cadre of government worker, I disagree that that's the way to go.
Yeah.
I think that the labor is just being unnecessarily hard. If not because we have removed learning from the past from our life. In the 80s, I remember very clearly, the labor demanded for 300 naira minimum wage. 300 naira.
Yes.
The government at the end of the day agreed and they gave labor 100 naira. Now, that 100 naira then, it was not that everybody got the 100 naira. It has always been like that. You grade it. There are some percentage, at some point, some people will even get 0.5%.
Yeah.
So where did labor come out? Where in the world has labor seen that happen? Anywhere in the world where minimum wage is increased and you use the same percentage to give everyone is totally unrealistic. So what you are saying in essence is that the man that is very much down the ladder and the man that is at the very top of it, you want to just give them like that, then there's no point in doing any minimum wage then. Because what you have succeeded in doing is to make the economy, to weigh down the revenue of the government, and you just kill it. However, I think labor should not make a mistake comparing the salaries of political office holders with civil servants. We all agree it is unfair, but they should not, in their own way of deciding that they want more because a senator is collecting so million, then a civil servant must collect the same thing. No, we must, in all honesty, every demand that is made must be reasonable. It must be reasonable. It must be within the reasonable. What they are demanding for, there's no, even if the economy is buoyant,
there's no way we can.
There's no way any government will allow that. The problem we have in Nigeria, as far as I know, is not issue of salary as such. It is the issue of what the salary can buy. The first time I ever traveled to the US, bread was under 75 cents, a loaf of bread. Some 10, 15 years after when I traveled there, it was still the same price. Bread. So, but in Nigeria, this thing continues to rise every time. These are the things that we should face. The moment you increase salary,
the allogers
are there, the landlord is there, the transporters are there.
Everybody.
So we must look for a better way to demand for better salaries, and not every time you must add to my salary, we must do this, we must do that.
I thought this the tripartite committee that was actually set up by the federal government, I thought would have factored all this when they agreed on 30,000 naira. You know, before they came out, there was a lot of back and forth before this 30,000 naira was decided. I thought this would have been factored in before raising the country's whole, signing the minimum wage into law among funfair and everything, telling us that in 2019 they will start implementing it. Now we're having this kind of hiccups.
I think it has to do with the federal government. My problem with the federal government about this minimum wage issue is that they should have laid their cards on the table with labor. That this is, okay, we are increasing minimum wage from 18 to 30, but it won't be across board. It won't be, even before the committee. You should look at the percentage. And that was what Lagos State did during the time of Fashola, the 18,000 minimum wage. Lagos does not use the 18,000 template across board. Some senior civil servants have their own percentage. And like Jide and Yinka have said, there is no way you can increase across board, because you have to consider the fact that even those who are getting the lowest amount are the people doing this job. they have the higher percentage. The top civil servant, they want to get the what's it called? Across-board percentage is not feasible. But the mistake the federal government had made is they did not lay their card fully on the table in their discussion with Labour. That was what I get from my interaction with some of them. So next time, they should open their minds, lay their cards on the table and say, this is what we want to do, and this is how we are going to do, how we are going to go about it. So that this controversy will not come up again.
Thank you, Razak. We are still talking about the negotiation with the federal government, and would that same thing be implementable with the state government? Sorry, but there will be a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, given the fact that the federal government is more buoyant than states, most of the federal government agencies pay better wages than the agencies, the departments and ministries at state level. No doubt about it, the federal government is in a much more comfortable position. Now, the federal government is going through these hiccups, these problems with labor. It can only be imagined what will happen at state level, because negotiations still have to take place at state level.
Yeah.
States, there are states that even the last time,
They
did not even pay the minimum wage, they did not obey.
Yes.
Now, and that's against the Constitution. The Minister of Labor has an obligation to enforce the minimum wage and ensure that even the private sector guys also pay the minimum wage. It is his duty to ensure that the minimum wage is enforced. So the question is, how will these states be able to pay? Of course, revenue formula adjustment is on the cards. It looks like the president may agree, because I've not seen any sign that the president is against the idea of taking another look at that revenue allocation formula. If it is tinkered with, more funds will go to the states. Of course, at the federal level too, government needs more funds, no doubt about it. Even the war that is prosecuting against Boko Haram is gulping billions every month, you know. So they too can argue that they need more funds.
Federal government?
Yes.
From that 52?
They can, no, I'm saying that they too can argue that they need more funds, because it's not easy to, we're at war. And war is an expensive business. If we decide to buy the kind of weapons, for example, that in my view can tilt can turn the table against Boko Haram, those weapons are extremely expensive. So the truth is, I think that the president will agree in the end to the idea of tinkering with the revenue allocation formula, which gives more to the federal government than to the states and local governments. So if that is done, the states will get more funds. But even that will not solve their problems, because we have a situation in which a single governor will have more than 2,000 aides. They do that simply to please political leaders across the local governments. Any opportunity, they give jobs to these boys. And you don't see them until payday. It's only on payday.
Not productive.
There are some of them who they earn salary in Lokoja, but they're actually resident in Ilorin. They don't show up until payday. So that has to change. States must be ready to dispense with dead woods. We are carrying too many dead woods in the civil service at state level, even at federal level. I believe that at the end of this, once you are able to pay and you calm labor down, you have to take a look at your workforce. The people that you don't need, you are not obligated to keep them. Let them go. If you have only 10 people who can function effectively, keep those 10 people and pay them living wages. Any government that cannot pay living wage Any state that cannot pay the living wage should be scrapped.
All right. I'll take this break. When we come back, we'll discuss more. Please don't go away. Thank you for joining us again. In case you're just joining us, this is Journalist Angles. We're reaching you live from Television Continental here in Lagos, Nigeria, and we are looking at the controversies surrounding the new minimum wage, that is 30,000 naira, implementation and other modalities.
You know, we were talking about having too many people in the civil service. I know of a particular agency that has in its employ 5 drivers and they have only 1 vehicle. So the drivers resume every day. The day the vehicle works, only 1 driver will drive. Then the remaining 4 will sit down.
Just the lounging.
At the end of the month, they all collect salaries.
Dole.
When the vehicle they are even using is almost a rickety vehicle. The month or the weeks that the vehicle is disused, the 5 drivers are there, either buying food for one oga or going to market and all that. So in that kind of a situation, what do you do? Will it be too much to say that you are sending 4 drivers away? Or maybe 3, so that they can be 2. But we have many like that. And in this system that we have even talked about computerization and so on, there are so many jobs that are being done that are being done by automated system. You don't need to carry a file from one table to the other again. All you need to do is to work it on your system. The next action will be taken by the other person. So unless we critically look at all these things and look at what next to do to cut down the wage bill, there are so many people who are just passengers in the office. They come to the office, they sit down. In fact, some ministries, they rotate when to come. Ajide, okay, you will come on Monday. Yinka will come on Tuesday.
So some have even become traders.
Exactly.
They bring stuff to the ministry to sell.
Exactly. So, I mean, the way to do it is to be able to look critically at this and say that in a normal world, the government is not supposed to be the largest employer of labor. Government provides the enabling environment, and people go there. We have people who are not supposed to be in civil service, but they are there because they know that it will give them time to do other things.
Musba, somebody is staying in Lagos and another person is staying in Abeokuta, and we are both arguing at this minimum wage, 30,000 naira. We know the lifestyle in Lagos, and to get an accommodation
in
Ibadan, and you know, doing a comparative analysis of this peculiarity of these states.
Of course, the person staying in Abeokuta will enjoy minimum wage better than the person living in Lagos.
Definitely.
Because the cost of living in Abeokuta is lower than that of Lagos State. So the man in Abeokuta will enjoy himself, and the man in Osogbo will really enjoy himself with
accommodation.
Of course. I remember when Dr. Kayode Fayemi, during his first term, you know, he introduced this welfare fund for elderly people, 5,000 naira.
Yes.
People were looking at it as, how much is 5,000 naira?
Exactly.
But the old women, every month, they collect the 5,000 naira. They know the value of that 5,000 naira.
Able to do with that money.
That's when Fayose came in and scrapped the system, it worked against him. Because those who are collecting it know that this money we are collecting has a benefit for us. That is it. So the value of the money in Abeokuta, of course, will be lower than that of Lagos State. Then I want to differ a little from what they are saying about the number of people in the civil service. Maybe I tend to reason as a politician now, because laying off workers has political implications. the town's political implications. That is why most governments will try as much as possible not to lay off workers, even in the face of agitation for salary increments. Baba Akonde laid off workers. It worked against him.
But Tinubu laid off workers here, and they didn't work against him.
But
In fact, he got re-elected.
Of course. Tinubu,
That's an exceptional case.
Tinubu is an exceptional case.
It's about taking the right decision.
At the right time.
It's not about, if it's not about you, then take the decision. Even if you lose, you lose.
What we should do is to look at the top. Most civil service, most states are top heavy. They are top heavy. The directors.
It's part of all the. It's part of the.
No, it's part of it.
Right size.
Exactly. We are thinking of only the lower cadre. No.
You see people reducing their ages.
Yeah.
Just
It's the
because
lower
they don't want
cadre
to
that
stay-
it's
to
not
hang
the
on.
lower cadre we are even talking about.
Yes.
All right, we have to leave it there and move on. Every country of the world has a soccer hero or heroes, but how such treats them is a different ballgame. Nigeria has its own soccer heroes, and one of them was the late Super Eagles midfielder Samuel OKWARAJI, who collapsed and died on the 12th of August 1989 at the National Stadium, Lagos, during a 1990 World Cup qualifier against Angola. The Nigerian Football Federation and thousands of Nigerians on Monday paid tributes to the late OKWARAJI. The NFF shared a video on the memory of the late OKWARAJI, who was capped 8 times by Nigeria. Meanwhile, a medical doctor who was part of the Super Eagles crew when the late footballer Dipo Odunuga said the incident was a turning point in the history of football in Nigeria, as OKWARAJI's death made players less patriotic to national duties. Jide, what's a recollection of the day OKWARAJI died some 30 years ago?
Well, I remember watching that match with my dad, and suddenly the match was difficult. We thought it would be easier for us to score more goals, but we were struggling, and a lot of us were taken aback by the decision to have David Ngodiga in goal, ahead of Peter Rufai.
Okay, Peter Rufai started playing then?
Yes, long before then.
Long
Before then.
Yes. So, at the end of the day, we got that one goal, and in the 77th minute, OKWARAJI collapsed in the middle of the field. And we saw that bus taking him out of the stadium. We knew that it must have been
severe injury.
a serious injury, because naturally he was a very strong player, but later on we heard that he had died. At that point, I didn't expect that he would die. I was thinking, well, he will get over it and probably play the next game. That was it, and we couldn't qualify for the Nations Cup, for the World Cup that year, despite having some very talented footballers. The team was coached by Manfred Hohner, the German that the NFA refused to pay his salary, and he left Nigeria in anger.
Musbah, you must have watched the match like Jide. What was going through your mind when OKWARAJI died?
That day, I intended to go to the stadium. I was in Lagos, a Lagos boy. Later, I did not know how to tell my uncle where I was going. So eventually, I decided to stay at home and watch the match. Maybe that was what to save my life. The stadium was overcrowded.
Yes, filled to capacity, and some people died.
Filled to capacity. It was during times Nigeria were watching real football.
Yeah.
We were watching football, and that match was overhyped, because we have presence of foreign-based footballers: OKWARAJI, Ademola Adesina, Stephen Keshi, Etimesin, they are Samson Siasia. They are all, and Odson Eguavon Cereso. they were all around. So people were expecting much from Nigerian team. So when the match started and the Angolans were proving stubborn, we knew that this is going to be a very tough match. Of course, we started well. We had a penalty, but that would be the first time I will see Cerezo losing a penalty or Senegal. We lost that penalty. We lost that penalty. Eventually, we score through Keshi. They had their own penalty too, and they lost. They lost their own penalty too. It was a match of 2 penalties. It was clamored by that incident. Those of us watching the match at home thought it was just a minor incident. The man just, nobody was nearing him. He just fell off like that. And Siasia, after going to meet him, had to call in the ambulance, and it was driven away. It was about an hour after the match that we learned that he has passed on. It was so sad. It was the first patriotic Nigerian footballer I have seen. He walked into the national team and started playing. We started calling him OKWARAJI. It was some of his friends who corrected us that it is not OKWARAJI, it is OKWARAJI. So he was so talented that the late ace commentator, Ernest Ogonko, nicknamed him super professional. So, but he died.
What?
You know,
okay.
You know, one thing that I see there is that time was the golden age of football in Nigeria.
Yeah.
I was in Jos quite all right in watching it on TV, and I saw everything. At that time, I was also a devoted football fan, watching football on TV and in the stadium. That day, the way he played, and the fact that when he collapsed, when the ambulance was called, we all thought it was the usual kind of injury thing and that he would stand up again and play. But after the match, and later when we heard that he died, it was something very shocking. And for me, just as the doctor has said, it might be responsible for the decay we are experiencing in our football world today. Because if we have been able to do something for him, perhaps it will have been better. And the fact that the NFF even remember that this is, they should mark the 30th anniversary is also something of joy that, look, there are things that has happened in the past that we should not forget. There are people who have played with all their hearts, with all their mind, who are devoted to the country. Today, what we have is not like what it used to be. So we should always remember people like that who have done a lot for our football fraternity and in other fields too. 30 years, I'm happy that NFF even remembered, and they need to be commended for that.
Julie, what kind of player was OKWARAJI? I mean, his style of play?
Oh, he was very creative, very strong, full of running. He was the more skillful version of Aloysius Atwegbu. Because Aloysius Atwegbu was full of running, it was the engine room. OKWARAJI was very the powerful engine room as well. You cannot shrug him off the ball easily because he was strong. So, and he was always targeted for bad tackles by opposing teams because they knew that he was our playmaker and he had energy. You need a playmaker to be very energetic because he has to run all day. He has to call for the ball and unlock defenses with passes. He was the sort of player who could do that. And he also had a good shot because if you remember his goal against Cameroon, which was the fastest goal of Maroc 88.
Nations Cup.
Nations Cup. clearly that showed that he had a good shot. Although he didn't score many goals for Nigeria, but on that occasion, he saw an opportunity to take a shot from long range, and he scored that goal that, in my view, was the best goal of the tournament. And he ended up being the only Nigeria in the African 11
of that tournament.
Of that tournament. So that should tell you how good he was as a player. Musbah talked earlier about the fact that he walked into the national team on his own. He had been overlooked by the coaches until a Nigerian journalist spotted him, and he said, look, I'm ready to play for my country. I think I'm good enough. The only other player that I remember did that was Chidi Nwanu. Chidi Nwanu felt he was better than Stephen Keshi. Yes. And he challenged West Ham, said, give me a chance. I'm better than Stephen Keshi. I play more games than him in Europe. I'm better than this man. You know, and West Ham wanted to field him in a grade C match against Ethiopia. He said, no, you must put me in a grade A match. And Chidi Nwanu's first match for Nigeria was against Sweden. That was a grade A match before the World Cup.
And did well.
In 1994. West Ham had no choice
But to field him.
to field him during the World Cup in 1994. Though he did not play the Nations Cup, but he played the World Cup games, those games that we won. He played. He started the first match against Bulgaria. He played. Against Italy, he played. He benched Keshi.
Yes.
The same way he promised to bench Keshi because he said, I'm better than him. They gave him that chance, and he proved that he was better. Chidi Nwanu will play 90 minutes without making a single mistake. So OKWARAJI was like that in many ways because he too trusted his abilities, and he played for the national team. And every contract that he signed with his clubs, he insisted that he should be released on demand for the national team without the national team of Nigeria having to pay any form of compensation. That's what made him special. He was a doctorate of law student, and he knew what he wanted.
Musbah, which match would you describe as OKWARAJI's best game for Nigeria?
He did not play quite much for Nigeria. So he did not play so many matches for Nigeria. But I remember his first game for Nigeria. It was against Algeria. Enugu. Olympic qualifier. And he really proved himself. People were anticipating, who is this OKWARAJI? Who is this OKWARAJI? And that would be the first time a professional will come from abroad and will just enter the national team like that and play and impress him.
I think he was playing. He played in Belgium.
He was playing in Belgium then.
Okay.
Yeah.
He just came in and said, I want to play. And he won the shirt. He started the match. Eventually, we won and qualified for the Olympics. He was named man of the match. It was so good. Then I still remember the match GD talked about, the Nigerian Cameroon match during the group stages of the Nations Cup in Morocco in 1988. He was also named the man of the match in that group stage match. It was good. That time, we were not playing so many matches. So he couldn't play many matches for Nigeria. He was just playing the important matches. We were not playing friendly as we are doing now.
Yes.
So that was why he did not play much for Nigeria. But the one he played, he excelled.
Very well.
OKWARAJI really had a bad day on the pitch. He really had it. Except on that Angola match. Except on that day. That people knew that, this is not the usual OKWARAJI we know.
Even me, at a point, I was shouting at him because there are mistakes. And even Africa had some very talented players at Maroc 88. Cameroon had
Siri
Makanaki. We had Abdulaziz Boudebala from Morocco.
Kabongo
Igoe from
Zaire.
Old Zaire. So many players. For him to have emerged amongst the best 11 in Africa, it showed that he was truly a great talent for Nigeria.
Mohamed Kirimu, also of Morocco. El-Zakzaky,
Omambi, Kanabi.
Those are players who did very well in the World Cup.
Yes, now. And Nigeria went with... That was the commencement of
And
the
goalkeeper Dread of Algeria.
Of Algeria. That was then Hakim this man came, this Algerian player, Belloumi.
Yeah, Lagda Belloumi.
Yeah, Lagda Belloumi. I think it was his penalty, Rufai caught the last penalty when we met them in the semi-final. So we played 11 penalties.
Yes.
So we have to start all over again.
We don't have the visuals.
We have to start all over again. And Cerezo, Austin Iguavon came all over again, scored.
Yeah, Kenny scored.
Yeah, Kenny scored. Then Belloumi, I just called the ball like this, like this.
That was the day.
That was the day.
This guy was nicknamed 10-10.
10-10. Brighton Mokaro.
Brighton Mokaro. Because he had to break someone's leg.
Menard of Algeria. Because they gave Ademola Adesina a red card in the match.
Okay.
And we were going for extra time, playing 10 against 11. Omokaro said, we'll play 10 against these people for another 30 minutes.
He broke his leg.
Yes, now.
And that guy had a protective strap around his neck. So, meaning that he was carrying an injury.
Yeah.
So, Brighton Mokaro targeted that knee with a tackle. So, it became 10-10.
And unfortunately for them,
you know, when the Amasio came in, I was rubbing, I said, you know, do well.
If you miss the ball, don't miss the legs.
They had made their compulsory 2 changes. There was 2 changes there.
Yeah.
So they can't replace it.
Okay, it was 2 then.
It was 2 then. They had made their compulsory 2 changes. And that was how they nicknamed Brighton Mokaro 10-10. Because he reduced them to 10.
Remember what the commentator, Fabio Olanikwekun said? He said, Rashidi Yekini has never missed a penalty for Nigeria. Rashidi has to score. He has to score. And Rashidi got up. I've never seen a player gifted with powerful shots like Yekini. He didn't break his stride. He was walking towards the ball. And he hit it one time. And he doesn't deceive keepers. He would have made up his mind, okay, I'm going for this angle. He trusted his shot so much. He just looked for that angle, placed the ball there. And we were back in the game.
He never lost a penalty.
He never lost a penalty for Nigeria.
Yes, he never.
Now, the Super Eagles doctors, says OKWARAJI's deaths, has made Super Eagles players less patriotic. Do you agree? As in, since that time, he has not been immortalized till today?
Yes, he has not.
Immortalized, but not enough.
Not enough.
Because
can you compare
the statue that is there? I don't think
can you compare
the contribution
immortalization to the way the English look at Bobby Moore? The England captain who lifted the World Cup in 1966. Can you compare the way we look at OKWARAJI with the way the Russians look at Lev Yashin? Arguably the best goalkeeper the world has ever seen. Can you compare the way we immortalize OKWARAJI to the way Brazilians look at Pele?
Or even Jairzinho.
Or Jairzinho, the man who scored in every match of the World Cup for the first time in 1970. So we have them. We have heroes. We don't honor them. We don't honor our heroes.
I'm not even.
And when they break a leg, we don't care.
I'm not even sure.
Look at the issue of Okosha.
Emeka Ezeogo, the one that West Ham nicknamed Destroyer, because he was the one who did the dirty job for the Super Eagles. When he broke his leg, we abandoned him. We abandoned him. When this guy broke his leg at Daman, during the Daman miracle. Nduka Ubadi, we also abandoned him. So these things are not good. People who truly serve their country with all their heart, we should always honor them. Make their families feel proud of them.
Look at Femi Opabumi. Opabumi is in Ibadan now, almost blind.
Let's hope that this 30th anniversary.
People, I don't know. Demola Adesina is in Osogbo.
Because that's where he started his football career with Osogbo Nepa.
With Osogbo Nepa, playing for Shensha Grammar School. He's there.
Came to Shooting Stars.
Then came to
extremely strong midfielder. Extremely strong,
so
very athletic.
We have all of them. What are they doing now?
Well, let's hope the 30th anniversary now, they will remember and do something.
What are they
What did they do for Muda Lawal during his 30th anniversary? What did they do?
Oh, we'll start somewhere. We'll start somewhere.
Exactly.
I want to thank you, Musbar Razak. I can say Musbar Razak is like an encyclopedia when it comes
football,
to football. When it comes to Nigerian football, he's Jide Otitoju's machinery. At anybody that wants to talk sport, let's go and get his machinery.
The history of football in our country is not well documented. It's not well documented. You can't go on the net and find enough.
What we're talking
there are
about,
few people,
journalists that can.
there are few people. Musbar has worked with me. He was my features editor, and I know that when it comes to Nigerian football, I've not seen anyone like him. You know, and when I say that, I say that because I also started as a sports writer.
We have to go. The story for another day. Not like how he believe. And the maestro himself is covered entertainment, covered sport. Thank you so much, and that's our offering. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Uzubahu. See you tomorrow, and God bless Nigeria.